Yo, what is up guys? Welcome to another Wild Rift video, and in today's video I'll be playing Ezreal. And in today's video I will actually absolutely dominate the enemy. Now you guys actually requested me a lot to upload one of my games where I dominate as well. And you'll see the reason why I don't actually upload those games, but it's still entertaining to watch, so I decided to upload it anyways. So in the beginning part of the video I'm going to be explaining to you how to build Ezreal. If you want to skip to the gameplay immediately, timestamps in the description. So Ezreal does have a few builds. However, this is my favorite one. So let me explain to you what kind of builds he has. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is this one, where you start with just a tier of Goddess, and then you go for a straight up a Trinity Force. See, the thing is, you really have to get the tier of Goddess, because otherwise you will not have enough energy. You will just not have enough energy for Ezreal, because he spends so much. So you can start with the tier of Goddess and go for the Trinity Force immediately. This build, see, the reason that I do not like this build is, it's true that in the mid game you get a massive power spike, stronger than a mana immune power spike, but during the first dragon you'll be so damn weak. And it's just, I don't understand. It's just not good. It's just not good on Ezreal, because the first dragon fight is so important for Ezreal as well. And this is just gonna delay your power spike, and after the Trinity Force you'll get a mana immune anyways. See, I just don't understand why people go for it. So I just start with the mana immune. You can always get mana immune before the first dragon, even if you suck on Ezreal. This item is so incredibly cheap that you should always be able to get it before the first dragon. Always, literally always. So you start with the mana immune, then you go for boots, you go for tier 1 boots, and then you go for the Trinity Force. And when you're building the Trinity Force, get Sheen first. And the reason that you get Sheen first is whenever you hit your first ability, it applies on-hit effects. So the bonus damage from the Sheen obviously applies to the first ability. So you're just gonna deal so much more damage when you get the Sheen. So immediately get the Sheen after your mana immune. For your boots, it depends. See, there's really two boots that you can go for on Ezreal. First of all, Glutinous Greaves for the lifesteal, or you can go for Ionian Boots of Lucidity. You go for Ionian Boots of Lucidity if you just want to poke the enemy's heart, and if they cannot really respond to your poke. Like if the enemies have a Ziggs or an Orianna, do not go for Ionian Boots. You need the Glutinous Greaves instead, because then you're going to be able to heal up, because they're going to poke you as well, right? So you need to actually heal up from that. So I actually in 90% of the games go for the Glutinous Greaves, because I really like the healing. Like when an enemy is diving you and fighting you, instead of the Ionian Boots, I just go for the Glutinous Greaves, just for the lifesteal. As my third item, I personally always go for Blade of the Rune King, but you can also go for Death's Dance. See, Death's Dance is more of a safe item when you play Ezreal. If you're against a lot of burst damage and you're really struggling to stay alive in the game, Death's Dance could save your ass a lot. But the damage is just not big. The thing is, Blade of the Rune King gives you such massive damage, especially when you've already built Mana Immune and Trinity Force, because you already have quite a lot of attack damage. So Blade of the Rune King is gonna give you even more attack damage, and of course that passive. And yes, that passive applies to your first ability as well. Whenever you hit your first ability, you're gonna deal damage, and on top of that, you're gonna deal damage equal to 6% of their current HP, which is quite huge, right? You're gonna be dealing so much damage with this item. As your fourth item, again, you can either go for Mortal Reminder or Death's Dance. Building Ezreal is quite easy, guys. As I said, you just start with a Mana Immune, then you go for the Trinity Force. Boots, as I said, depends. And then as your third item, Blade of the Rune King. If you want to play it safe, go for the Death's Dance. And then as your fourth item, if they have a lot of burst damage, you get a Death's Dance. If they don't, you get a Mortal Reminder. Again, Mortal Reminder deals way more damage than Death's Dance, but sometimes you need the Death's Dance. By the way, about Guardian Angel, I just prefer Death's Dance over Guardian Angel. See, the reason for that is because Ezreal already has his third ability, which is basically a flash to escape from danger, right? So I really believe that Ezreal doesn't need a Guardian Angel. Really, like I genuinely believe, and I've played a lot of Ezreal, that I've tried Guardian Angel as well. It's not necessary. Death's Dance is gonna be more than enough in the late game to make you survive, because whenever you hit the enemy after the Death's Dance, you're gonna heal up so much, because you have so much lifesteal already. At this point, you just shouldn't die anymore on Ezreal. So for the runes, Conqueror. Conqueror is always gonna be the best rune on Ezreal, and just go for it. Oh, by the way, I forgot to talk about an item, which is, where is it? This one, Iceborne Gauntlet. You can go for Iceborne Gauntlet, but nah, the damage is just so low. But so when you do go for an Iceborne Gauntlet, you want to play Ezreal in a different way. Basically, the point of Iceborne Gauntlet is having armor. This item gives you 50 armor, but yeah. And when you do go for Iceborne Gauntlet, by the way, you do not need a mana mune. You do not need a mana mune. Do not go for a mana mune, because this item gives you 450 max health already, max mana already. You are gonna struggle a little bit with mana, but you just don't need a mana mune, because you're gonna be dealing 0 damage if you go for a mana mune and an Iceborne Gauntlet. So keep that in mind. So I only recommend you to go for Iceborne Gauntlet if the enemy is full attack damage and you kind of just want to tank up that damage. But still, even if the enemy is full attack damage, I personally go for Trinity Force just for the damage. So now onto the runes again. For your second rune, there is a few runes that you can go for. First of all, Brutal, which is probably the worst rune that you could go for. Don't go for Brutal. Gathering Storm. This one just stacks up into the late game. This is like a safe rune. If you just want to chill in the early game and get to the late game. I don't recommend it, however. And now is Hunter Vampirism, which is my favorite Ezreal rune. If you get a few kills in the early game, especially at the dragon, which you should be able to, man, Hunter Vampirism is gonna be an absolute powerhouse rune for you, especially in the mid game, because it's gonna give you a lot of attack damage, and also it skills into the late game because it gives you a lot of lifesteal. You can also go for Champion. Now this one is also good on Ezreal, because what this one is gonna allow you to do is gonna allow you to do a lot of poke damage in the early game, because that bonus 8% damage is quite a lot, right? So in the early game, you're gonna be able to do quite a lot of poke damage to the enemy in the lane. But as I said, I prefer Hunter Vampirism just because I'm often able to get kills in the early game with Ezreal. As my third rune, Hunter Titan. Quite often do I go for Hunter Titan because it's just really nice to be like a slippery Ezreal to, you know, even if the enemy stuns you, charms you, you're gonna get out of it pretty fast with the tenacity. You can also go for Second Wind. I don't recommend it. You can go for, where is it, Bone Plating? Yeah, Bone Plating if they have a lot of burst damage. If you're against an Evelynn, for example, or Lee Sin, and you do not want to die immediately by them, get the Bone Plating. But otherwise, as I said, Hunter Titan. And now as your fourth rune, Sweet Tooth, because Sweet Tooth is broken. If you go for the Iceborne Gauntlet, however, I do recommend you to take a mana flow band, but you should test it out. If you feel like you need more mana, get a mana flow band. Otherwise, just get a Sweet Tooth, because Sweet Tooth is broken. For your spells, Barrier and Flash, just to get even more survivability. So that was it about the build. Let's get into the gameplay. And sorry for not editing, but my cousin is basically over at my house, and you know, I'm having a lot of fun with him, setting up the new computer as well. So I do not really have a lot of time to play Wild Rift and to edit videos. So what I'm doing is I'm just waking up a bit earlier and making the videos, right? So, okay, let's take a look at this. I don't know what the Wukong is saying. Oh, so this is immediately start of the game. When you play Ezreal, you get the Sapphire Crystal and you just shoot your first ability at bacteria on the map. You just shoot your first ability randomly. So here, you can see me do it, boom. See that? And obviously the reason for that is to stack up the mana mune. You can see the stacks over here. Take a look at here. You see that? The 30? So this is, you actually really want to do this. This is very important, because if you don't randomly shoot your first ability, you're not going to be able to stack up the stacks, and you're going to delay your mana mune by like a few minutes. And do you want to delay it? No, because it's actually a pretty huge power spike to get the Mura mana, because it gives you so much damage and so much mana as well. So keep that in mind. You always want to keep shooting abilities at all times to stack up that Sapphire Crystal. So in this game, I took Hunter Titan. Oh no, not Hunter Titan. Yeah, I took Hunter Titan as well, but Hunter Vampirism, yeah. Which means that you're not gonna be as strong in the laning matchup. See, every rune has its powers and its weaknesses, but it doesn't mean you're weak. Keep that in mind. You're never really weak in the early game, because there is this misconception where people think that Ezreal is just weak in the early game, which I don't agree on, because it's true that Ezreal is not the strongest, but Ezreal is not weak. Look at this. Boom. See that? Ezreal has a lot of poking. He's very good at fast trades in the early game. And Ezreal's playstyle really changes when you get to the late game. So in the early game, as I said, you're really good at poking. Here, I throw my second ability. Oh, I missed it. That's sad. Oh no, they ganked me. I'm just dead. I'm just dead. I didn't even bother flashing here because I was just dead. I had already used my third ability and I was dead. So let me explain to you what a mistake was that I made in that lane. So I used my third ability to poke the enemy. I mean, it's not bad to use a third ability to poke the enemy, but especially after the nerfs that Ezreal got, because Ezreal actually got nerfed, guys. They nerfed the cooldown of his third ability in the early game. So the cooldown is 3 seconds longer in the early game. What does that mean? That if you use your third ability to poke the enemy in your lane, you're gonna have way less breathing space for ganks. Because you saw there, I got ganked and my third ability was on like a 2-second cooldown. So if I did have my third ability, I would have actually been able to flash out and then use my third ability to get even further out, which would, you know, I would have survived. So keep in mind when you play Ezreal, when you want to use your third ability, and using it aggressively is often not the right decision in the early game, unless of course you can just kill the enemy. But using it aggressively to just poke the enemy is often not going to be worth it, even if you do massive poke like I did, because of course if you get ganked, you're dead. If you do not have your third ability, you are dead. So that was actually a pretty subtle mistake that I did on Ezreal, which you may think is not important, but I'm 0-1. I'm literally 0-1 because of that mistake right now. So I could argue that it is actually pretty important. By the way, guys, if you want me to upload the games where I absolutely dominate, and you'll see. If you want me to upload games where I absolutely dominate, give the video a like. I don't know why I said that. It doesn't make sense. Just give the video a like if you enjoy it and want to support the channel. You could actually just let me know in the comments if you enjoy these types of videos. That would be a way better thing to say, but I guess I was just looking for a subtle way to ask for a like. Oh man, okay. So the way that you want to upgrade your abilities on Ezreal as well is always your first ability first, of course, because this is your main ability. Then you want to upgrade your third ability for the flash, because it's like a second flash, and then your second ability lastly, because it's not the most important. And of course, upgrade your ultimate whenever you can. Here, you can see that? This is what I was talking about. I basically got caught out again. There were 4 enemies in my lane. However, I still had my third ability. And that was the difference. Oi, Tristana, that's not the call. That is not the call. When an enemy dives you like that, you can just use your ultimate immediately to deal an insane amount of damage to them. And we just won the fight. Even though I don't even have my mana immune, it was a fight that was good for us, so you can still take it. See, I do really recommend you to go back whenever you can and get the mana immune. Especially before the first dragon. I would actually always tell you to do that as fast as possible. But in this scenario, the enemy Tristana did a very weird dive on me, which was basically a free kill. So I decided to just go for the kill by using my ultimate, going all in on him. I literally went all in. And then my team was actually also doing good at the fight. So instead of backing off, I just helped them out because they were doing pretty good at the team fight. So I could still help them win that fight and we got the dragon. So here, oh now, this is one of the biggest power spikes that you'll get on Ezreal in the early game, which is mana immune and sheen. When you get these 2 items, ooh, man, you're gonna be strong. You're gonna be dealing an insane amount of damage, especially with that sheen. Like, you're gonna be able to surprise your enemy pretty hard with that. So here you can see. Just look at that damage. Just look at that. Huh. Look at that damage, guys. This is what I mean. Crazy amount of damage when you get the mana immune and the sheen. Oh, he goes in again. Damn, Leona's so tanky though. Yeah, we got another kill. So here it basically starts the snowballing. When you do start the snowball on Ezreal, do it the right way. Don't get shut down. So the way that you basically do that is you have to have good map awareness. So right now I see the Galio in the top side of the map. However, we don't know where the Irelia is, but we should be fine against the Irelia because we have a Senna and an Ezreal, and like 2 versus 1 we should be fine against the Irelia. So that was why we just took the turret and now we're backing off. Always pay attention to your web so you know when you have to go in and when you have to go out. Like when the enemy jungler is missing, you have to be very careful. Of course, unless you've already killed the enemy bot laner and the support, then you can be a bit more aggressive like we did. But you really don't want to die after what we just did in the lane, where we killed Tristana and the Leona. Because if I die now, they'll get a pretty decent shutdown from me, right? Let's take a look at this. This is not the best fight that I'm taking, but of course, Ezreal's ultimate is insane. So I want to talk about that team fight, right? Not team fight, that 1v1 that I just did. That was the worst 1v1 that you could possibly have on Ezreal, but I still won it. The reason that it was the worst 1v1 that you could possibly have is because... wait, I'm actually gonna go back to it. Here, let's take a look at it. So I was fighting in the middle of his minions. First of all, his minions are gonna deal a lot of damage to me. Secondly, it's gonna be incredibly hard to hit. Here, look at this. I actually managed to still hit my first ability on the Tristana by getting super close to him, but you never want to fight like that, unless of course you're super duper ahead and you already know that you're gonna win the fight anyways. So as I said, I'm sorry for this upload that it was a bit less quality than I normally would upload, but as I said, I would really love to hear in the comments if you still would like to see videos like this, but not like this one, more like where the enemy surrenders at like minute 10 or something, right? Because I feel like it's not good content, but today I'm just uploading it because it's better than no video, right? So thank you very much for watching, and yeah, I will see you all in the next WildRift video. Bye bye.